You walk past a camera on an ordinary street, on an ordinary day, and somewhere behind that lens a system quietly makes a decision about you. Not about what you're doing. You're not doing anything. A decision about what you might do. Whether your face matches someone on a list. Whether your neighborhood is due for extra patrols. Whether you, specifically, belong to a group the software has learned to watch more closely. You will never see this happen. You'll get no notification, no explanation, no chance to object. And yet the output of that split-second calculation can shape whether a police car slows down beside you, whether an officer stops you, whether your name gets written into a file you don't know exists. This is not a scene from a science fiction film. It is a real category of technology, deployed right now in cities around the world, sold under names like predictive policing and real-time facial recognition. The promise is seductive. Stop crime before it happens, using cold, objective data instead of flawed human hunches. But the reality is stranger and far more troubling, because these machines don't predict the future. They predict the past and then they point it at people. Let me show you exactly how that works and why the same faces keep getting flagged. Start with the pitch because it genuinely sounds reasonable. Police departments have limited officers and endless demand. So what if you could use data to send them exactly where they're needed before a crime even happens? That's the core idea behind predictive policing. There are two broad flavors. The first is place-based. Software analyzes years of historical crime reports and produces a map of small zones it labels as high risk, telling officers where to patrol on a given shift. The second is person-based. Systems that try to score individuals on how likely they are to be involved in violence, either as a victim or an offender, generating what have been called heat lists, rosters of specific named people the system has singled out for attention. On paper, it's just math. Feed in the numbers, get out a probability, allocate resources efficiently. No prejudice, no gut feelings, just the objective wisdom of the data. And that word, objective, is the whole sales pitch. It's what makes a city council sign the contract. It's what lets an officer say the computer sent me here, not my own assumptions. But there is a crack running straight through the foundation of that promise, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The data these systems learn from is not a neutral record of where crime happens. It's a record of where police have already been looking. Here's the trap, and it's a loop. A place-based system is trained on historical crime data, but crime data is really arrest and report data, and arrests only happen where officers are present to make them. If a neighborhood has been heavily policed for years, it generates more recorded incidents, not necessarily because more crime happens there, but because more eyes were watching. The algorithm ingests that history and concludes, this is a hotspot, so it sends more officers there. More officers means more stops, more searches, more recorded incidents, which flow right back into the data as fresh proof that the area is dangerous. The prediction created the evidence for itself. Researchers who study these systems have a name for this, a feedback loop. The map isn't forecasting crime, it's forecasting policing, and then generating the very statistics that confirm it was right. Meanwhile, offenses in areas the system never flagged stay invisible because no one was sent to look. The result is a machine that wears the costume of objectivity while quietly automating and amplifying the patterns of the past. It doesn't remove human bias from the equation. It launders it, takes a messy, contested history of where enforcement was concentrated, runs it through software, and hands it back as a clean, confident mathematical fact about the future. Now take that logic and point it at people instead of places. Person-based systems try to identify individuals worth watching, sometimes assembling ranked lists of people flagged as high risk. Imagine learning that your name is on such a list, not because you were charged with anything, but because an algorithm weighed factors like who you know, where you live, and past contact with police, and decided you fit a profile. In documented programs, people have ended up flagged based partly on their social connections. Being acquainted with someone the system already watches can raise your own score. Think about what that means. You can be elevated to suspicion by association, by geography, by the statistical company you keep, without ever being told, and often without any straightforward way to find out or appeal. And once you're on the list, the attention you receive can generate exactly the kind of record that seems to justify your being there in the first place. The same feedback loop now wrapped around a human life. Some of these person-based programs have been scaled back or shut down after scrutiny raised hard questions about fairness and effectiveness. But the underlying idea keeps resurfacing in new forms because the fantasy is so appealing. That a machine can look at a person who has done nothing and reliably see the crime they haven't committed yet. Layer facial recognition on top of all this, and the stakes get physical fast. These systems scan a face and compare it against a database, returning a confident-looking match. But that confidence hides a documented weakness. Rigorous testing, including large government evaluations, has found that many facial recognition algorithms are significantly less accurate on some faces than others, with higher rates of false matches for women and for people with darker skin. A false match isn't an abstract statistic. It's a real person, innocent, whose face the machine confused with a suspect's. There are documented cases of individuals being wrongly arrested after a facial recognition system pointed at them. People detained for crimes they did not commit, their lives disrupted, because the software was too sure and a human trusted it too much. And notice how the errors stack. A biased map decides which streets to watch. A biased list decides which people to flag. A biased recognition system, more likely to misfire on certain faces, decides which of those people to stop. Each layer's mistakes feed the next, and the person standing at the bottom of that pile of confident machine judgments is a human being who did absolutely nothing, except walk past the wrong camera with the wrong face. So let's answer the question in the title directly. Who ends up flagged again and again? Not randomly distributed citizens. It's the communities that were already the most heavily policed, because that's the history the systems learned from. It's the faces the recognition software is worst at reading, because that's where the false matches cluster. The technology didn't invent these disparities. It inherited them, and then it did something uniquely dangerous. It gave them the appearance of objectivity. A police officer's hunch can be questioned, challenged, held accountable. But when the same outcome comes wrapped in software, it arrives with an aura of neutrality that shuts the conversation down. The computer said so. How do you argue with math? That is the real trick being played here. These systems don't predict crime. They predict the past, dressed up as the future, and they aim it disproportionately at the people who were already under the most suspicion. The bias didn't disappear. It just put on a lab coat. And because the whole thing runs invisibly at scale, most of the people being sorted, scored, and flagged will never even know it happened to them. Here's what's actually at stake, and it's bigger than any single wrongful stop. A free society rests on a quiet promise that you are judged for what you do, not for what a statistic says you might do. Predictive systems chip at that promise. They shift the question from did this person commit a crime to does this person match a pattern? And a pattern is something you can't defend yourself against, because you were never accused of anything specific in the first place. How do you prove you won't do something? How do you appeal a suspicion you were never told about? The danger of this technology isn't that it's evil or all-seeing. It's that it's confident, invisible, and trusted far more than it has earned, and that it quietly relocates the presumption of innocence from the person to the algorithm. The good news is that this is a human choice, not an inevitability. Cities have debated these tools, some have banned facial recognition outright, some programs have been shut down after public pressure. The technology only has the authority we agree to hand it. So the real question isn't whether machines can predict crime. It's whether we're willing to let a prediction stand in for proof. Would you want to know if your face or your name was on one of these lists? And if a machine flagged you for something you hadn't done, who exactly would you argue with? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.